How many of you are gardeners? How many of you grow food? All right, good. How many of you grow food in the summertime? Great. Okay, good. So you'll be able to contribute during this talk, and we want to encourage you, if you have questions as we're going along, to please raise your hand, and we'll entertain your question or your comment. So you may know something about some of the plants we're going to discuss that would be very good to share with others. So we welcome that. We're going to be talking about a few plants that you're familiar with. We're going to be talking about a lot of plants that I think most of you are not familiar with at all. And this is an opportunity for you to learn about a whole new range of plants that could make your gardening much more productive in the summertime and much easier all around. So I think this is an exploration. And because we knew that if you were exposed to all these plants we're going to talk about, that you couldn't find them locally anywhere, we brought a lot of them here tonight.
Thank you.
Otherwise, we'll be an exercise in frustration. Okay, so another aspect of this presentation I think we ought to consider, you find a lot of perennial vegetables. You know, most of the vegetables we eat are annual vegetables. Their life cycle is finished in a year or shorter. Lettuce, you might plant 3 times during the year, right? Collards go a long time, but they're all annuals. We're going to talk a lot about perennial vegetables, things that keep going. This is a great addition to your garden repertoire. And it's really wonderful to be able to go out and harvest leaves from shrubs and trees that you know are okay to eat and are nutritious. Have to do very little to big work. Just a wonderful bloom. The eggplant, you all know, probably you all use. That bottom shot is from Ray's garden there at Pioneer Village in Hill. That's eggplants. You do a very good job of growing eggplants. It's from Asia, China, India, and it's a subtropical annual, and it grows to about 3 feet. So you all know this plant, and it loves a lot of heat. So it's a good plant to be growing at this time. It likes a good fertile soil, moist and well drained. And it has some vitamins and antioxidant qualities. And of course, you know, we use the fruit, and it's usually cooked. Anybody eat raw eggplant? No. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next one.
While we're on this, what are the pollinators for this plant? I'm kind of curious. I don't think I've seen it yet. Is it self-pollinated?
It's self-pollinated.
Self-pollinated? Okay. Okay.
So the best eggplants around here are grown by Nathan Levy. When I first came 10 years ago to Florida, all the ones that would be new to you, they were new to me too. And it's just little by little, and I've been very grateful to find out, you know, what these things are that you can grow in the summer. So this one is okra, and we have regular okra and we have red. And the red ones get dark red pods. They don't get as many of them, but they're really cool. Yeah, ornamental, you know. Okay, they originate in Africa. They're tropical annual, so you got to plant them every year. If you let a pod go all the way, just let it keep going and going, you'll get the seeds out of it, so you can save them for the next year. Gets about 5 feet tall, or taller. I see them over my head. Full sun, they prefer. Soil, rich, moist, well drained. And they have fiber, calcium, potassium, vitamin A and C, folate, antioxidants. And you can use the pods, of course. The leaves, I didn't know this till I think last year. You can eat okra leaves. And the seeds. In soups, stews, gumbo, oil, medicine, hibiscus. In other words, mucilaginous or slimy. So I've actually found that eating them raw, and other people have told me this, they're not as slimy. So this is a suggestion.
It's better
Okay.
if you go small about size.
Yeah, if you let them go too long, they get hard, like really hard fibers.
By the way, there are a lot of areas in the world where they really do appreciate the mucilaginous quality of vegetables, Pacific and maybe the Middle East, Africa certainly. So I know a lot of people here don't appreciate that, but some of us don't mind it. So. All right, here's a new one, perhaps to some of you, Egyptian spinach. This is an annual. It gets about this tall, or somewhere around 4 feet. I like it very much. It's very, very easy to grow, easy to pick, and it has a nice mild taste, but it has a flavor. It's high in vitamins and minerals, and you use the leaves and the pods. You give little pods like small okra. It's related to okra. Again, this is hibiscus or mucilaginous to some degree. And it seems that that quality is brought out by cooking. But this plant you can eat raw. You like put it in salads or smoothies or whatever you like. Wonderful little plant.
Ooh, cranberry hibiscus. Originates in tropical Africa. It's an annual. Sometimes, I think if you cut them back in the winter, they can survive and grow some more. But no more than 2 years. 6 to 8 feet they can get tall. Sun or part shade they need to grow in. Soil moist or dry, well drained. Nutrition high in vitamin C, some B vitamins. You can use the leaves, flowers in salads or cook them or make tea out of them. The flowers are better for the tea, I guess. They're ornamental, they're beautiful, and they have a distinct lemony taste, a sour taste to them. So they're great mixed with other, with salad greens, and I guess that's about it. Sometimes my experience has been that some ants started coming under, like the bottom side of the leaf, and bring these little white aphids, and if you just take a hose them off, that disrupts the life cycle. The ants don't like it, and it helps a lot. So if you notice that problem on yours, that's a good thing to do with it.
Yeah, this is a really wonderful plant. Everybody should have this one. And once you have it, you see it's actually naturalized at my home. It grows, propagates on its own. So, yes, Dan.
How large do the stalks get?
Well, they can get about 1.5 inches. Okay. And 8 feet is not.
As I was talking earlier, I think I have some of this that grows on the side of my house and it's been there for like 12 years.
You got like a maple leaf,
Yeah.
12 years,
Yeah.
same stalk.
Same thing, it's just I cut it back and keep growing.
Oh, you cut it back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it would be good to verify what it is before you eat it.
How would this be for a kitchen garden if you grew it in a pot, fairly large pot?
Yeah, you can grow it in a pot, sure. Wonderful, wonderful plant. I eat it very regularly. Roselle is another hibiscus. This is another beautiful plant that has high ornamental qualities. Dark green leaves, reddish stems, very pretty in the landscape. The leaves are nutritious, edible, and the Caribbean peoples make a Christmas drink out of the calyx. Once the flowers come in the fall, you have these calyxes, which is like fruit, and they harvest that and they boil it up and make it just a beautiful Christmas drink. Scarlet color. So it's a tropical annual that comes from West Africa, and this can get to 7 feet or so as well. Yes.
Somebody gave me some Roselle seeds and I didn't plant them yet. Is it too late? Can you see them?
I would plant them.
It's okay now.
Yeah, I would plant them.
Is this represented here by either seeds or plants? I didn't happen to see any plants.
Our source couldn't come.
Oh, that's-
Although he may be late, he may have a few, but, you know, if any of you don't find the plants that are shown in this presentation, talk to me afterwards and I'll take your name and we'll get you the plants sometime. We'll find a way to make these available to you. This is a really worthwhile plant as well.
Bill, did you say whether it was a annual or a perennial?
It's just like the cranberry hibiscus. And it's up there.
That's not right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right, and it will reseed pretty freely as well, so you get a lot of seedlings, and then you can move them around your property or give them away. Very nice. So you can make jam with this too, and it also has medicinal qualities. So again, you can eat it raw or cooked. You can put it in anything. Wonderful plant.
It took, this is a really cool shrub from Asia, tropical Asia, I think in India. Deciduous, in other words, it loses its leaves in the winter, most of them. They just gradually, it stops growing and then it just starts losing them little by little. And then in the spring, they just really come out fresh and strong. Can grow up to 12 feet, better to keep it lower enough so you can pick them. Sun or shade. If you have it in the sun, you better have really good soil and lots of water. Otherwise, keep it in the shade. Soil moist, well drained. Has a lot of protein, vitamins A and C, and it's leaves. There are sometimes little tiny flowers underneath the stem, and sometimes seeds, like a little fruit, the size of a pea, and those are edible. They're actually quite good. They can be eaten raw or cooked. Steaming them is good. Stir fries, whatever. You can propagate them just by taking a cutting. We have some over here, and just stick them in the ground where you want them, water them good, they'll start growing. This time of year, if you did it in the winter, it wouldn't work, but now you can. And it has kind of a peanutty flavor, and the leaves are like thin, very, very tender, very easy to chew. And it has like twigs, like this long, with leaves coming off both ways, so you can just strip it right off. Toss it in your salad or cooking pot, or right in your mouth. Any questions on that?
Is there a way to order this plant?
To what?
Order?
Order it?
We have some over
We
here.
have some here. Yeah, I mean, the best way is cuttings. I got mine originally from Echo in Fort Myers.
Chaya. This is a plant from Central America, particularly Mexico. It's a shrub or a small tree. I've seen it down in Homestead at the Fruit and Spice Park, about 15 feet high and 20 feet across. So it was a small tree there, but it had been there a long time. You don't want to let it grow that much. Just keep it as a shrub, like some of these other tall-growing shrubs. You want to keep it at a size where you can harvest them easily. This plant is very, very drought tolerant. It likes full sun, maximum sun exposure. It's extremely nutritious, and it's extremely valuable as medicine. I searched it online, and it's got a whole list of medicinal uses that it's quite extraordinary. So, but this is one of the plants we're showing tonight that has cyanide in the leaves. You must cook this plant for about 5 minutes, and then gas is driven off through boiling. You can't just stir fry it lightly. You need to cook it seriously for 5 minutes. No problem. I have some of this at home. I didn't use it for a year because I never had tried a plant that had cyanide in the leaves. You can drink the water afterwards.
Oh,
Wow. So I started using it, it's no problem. And one of the nice things about this plant is that it doesn't reduce much in volume like most weeds do. So this is just terrific. Yeah.
Just something interesting, you say you can drink the water, but in Brazil, we put boiling water on it for a couple of minutes, but we drink the water. That first water we throw away, and then,
Well, I just put it in a pot and boiled it like any other grain. Ate the spinach, sliced spinach, and then drank the water.
yeah, the same thing we do with leaves from yucca. We
Yeah.
also boil because there's also cyanide in yucca.
That's right, we're gonna show that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Bill,
Yes.
I just wanted to say that when people are dealing with it, they should use gloves because the leaves can, I'm sensitive to chai, so I actually get very itchy, and so I have to let them gloves and things like that.
Some people could be sensitive to this plant, yes.
what you may be talking about is the sap is white and milky. That's usually an indication of latex, and latex
It doesn't matter, I
can
know
be an
that.
irritant.
I just mean like even moving them, when I'm moving them in the nursery, if I brush against the leaf,
Really?
I get irritated.
Oh, wow.
I thought I had like shingles or something.
That's essentially.
So Bill, would that then be a good use for comfrey?
What's that?
She has an irritation from Chaya.
I don't know.
To take
You
the
know,
comfrey leaf and rub it hard on you, on your arm, wherever the irritation is, and it stops it. I have people who volunteer in the garden who get irritated from various things, even lemongrass, somebody was irritated. And we use the comfrey to just calm.
Okay, that's a good tip, thank you. And I just learned this past week that beautyberry, which is a native shrub, which I have in my yard, is a very good insect repellent. Ah, boy, that's valuable tip.
How do you apply that? You slap the berries on your face.
No, you use the leaves, just roll them in your hand and just rub yourself.
What I gather from the chaya is when you cook it, it like comes off like a gas, the cyanide, so it just evaporates. That's why you can drink the liquid. Pigeon pea from India, it's perennial, so I guess it just keeps growing. Keeps going. 3 or 4 years. 3 or 4 years, Bill said. Okay. And get up to 8 feet tall. It's quite pretty. The little flowers, and then the pods. You can just let them dry. You know, just let them turn brown and dry, and then shell them and use them like dry beans. Is it possible to just take the young pod and cook it like string beans?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I've noticed that Echo seems to have a variety that you can, that the pot is edible for most of them.
Ah, okay, great.
I saw it in the Echo seed catalog.
Uh-huh. All right. That'd be great. It can be planted in any kind of soil, full sun or light shade. It's got nutrition, protein and copper, fiber, folate, manganese. And yeah, it says green or dry beans, so that's it. Animal fodder. It's a nitrogen fixer. That's the thing. For instance, if you're starting fruit trees, it's always good to put a nitrogen fixer next to them, at least one. And this is a real good one. You plant that pigeon pea, it produces nitrogen in the soil on its roots, which can feed your papaya or whatever kind of fruit tree. And then plus you get the beans from it, the peas. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's, any legume does that, it has nitrogen fixer, right?
What does?
Legume?
Yes, any kind of legume.
But
Yeah.
also, I'm not sure about this, but I know down in southwest Florida, there's in the Everglades, a lack of copper and magnesium
Uh-huh.
in the soil there.
Hmm.
And that's one of the problems with growing things in those areas, but I didn't know if it was the same around here, but this could have, if you just used it
in the compost, yeah,
Use it for compost as well, that could add a lot of good stuff back to your soil.
yeah, right?
We've been growing pigeon peas fairly extensively at the Faith House Garden on 15th Street North. It's just wonderful. Yellow and orange, yellow and red flowers, pretty attractive. And it gets a stem on it, I'd say a couple inches across eventually. It's a short-lived perennial. I like this plant a lot.
Bill,
Yes.
I have a row of pigeon peas. I was following a moon gardening book, which I hadn't tried before, and I planted a row on the new moon, and then I have some other ones that are half the size planted not on the new moon. And so anyone interested in that, to add that into your perspective, it really made a huge difference. They were the same seeds and everything, so it was really fascinating.
Same location?
Well, I mean, they're just a few feet away from each other, so, yeah.
Edible hibiscus, this is technically not a hibiscus, but it's called edible hibiscus. It's related, it's actually Abelmoschus, is the genus. It's from the Pacific, and it's a shrub. It'll get about 12 feet tall, sun-parched shade, very large leaves. You can cover a sandwich easily with one leaf. I put one in a wrap last week, and it was sticking out all over the one leaf.
Those the wrap.
Very, very interesting plant. High in vitamins A and C. It has protein. You can certainly eat it raw, cooked, or it works as a soup thickener too. Nice plant. It has big whitish flowers late in the season. Yes, Fred.
Is this also called Manahot?
Yes.
It's Abelmoschus manahot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moringa, this is a tree, and it can get to 40 to 50 feet high, grows 15 feet in a year. It originates in India. This is at this Echo place, which sends seeds and plants all over the world. This is their number one. The number one thing they deal with is moringa. They send seeds, maybe cuttings, and it's got so much nutrition in it that it's used for malnutrition in Africa and India, especially for pregnant women and infants. And all parts of it are edible. The leaves, of course, mostly use the leaves. The young pods, when they're, big as my pinky, big around, you can cut them up like string beans, cook them like that, or they're a little bit like asparagus. Some people compare them to that. It has a slight peppery taste like horseradish. And even the roots can be eaten. I've never tried that. I don't want to kill my tree. And then the seeds, if you let the pod go all the way, it gets about an inch across, and it gets seeds about as big as a pea. And those seeds are really excellent to eat.
I put some seeds on the table over here. I had some.
Oh, great.
Seeds from mine, so.
Okay.
I want somebody to have some.
Okay. Yeah. Diane?
I don't like the seeds raw. To me, they have a funny taste. But if you stir fry them in coconut oil,
Oh,
it's like roasted peanuts.
okay. Great. Good idea. Yeah.
I've read some things where they say that it's not a good idea to have a lot of the root. It used to be called horseradish tree because of the root and
Yeah.
the flavoring benefits, but there are elements that will upset your system if taken in large quantities over a time.
Okay.
There's also a new variety of these trees out. I don't know if there are any you call the barefoot gardener palm
Hmm.
on the web or the blog. It's a gentleman's name over there in Tampa.
Tom Carroll. Tom Carroll?
No, the other one. But check that out because the new, I guess, I'm gonna call them hybrids, that you can have bad connotations in some circles, but it has bigger leaves and larger pods. So it would definitely provide more food for.
There are about 13 varieties.
Growing space.
Oh,
I'll see if I can find that information.
Stenopadula may be the variety.
You may already know about it, but I'll see that information.
thank you, that explains something. My moringa, I got it from, can't think of his name now, but in Newport Richie. The pods are like, Jim Kowaleski, the pods are like this long.
Wow.
And everywhere else I see the pods are about this long. And the leaves are a little bigger, so that, yeah, I guess, I thought it was a different variety, but I wasn't sure. And also the seeds, they say if you grind them up and put them in water that's not pure, it'll purify, it'll kill bacteria or viruses or whatever. Yeah, Diane?
I've seen a video of a woman doing it, and what it does, it's a flocculant. It takes all of the sediment in the water and makes it settle out. And most of the bacteria is attached to the sediment.
Mm-hmm.
So by making it settle out, then you mostly purify the water. And then ECHO says then you need to put it in plastic bottles and finish purifying it by setting it in the sun for 6 hours.
Oh, okay. Well, you better,
The thing is the shape of the pod, the triangular shape.
yes, it has
I've
a,
never seen a pod like that before.
it has like a three-sided
Yes,
shape.
three-sided
And
pod.
if you let it go, it'll split open. The seeds will start popping out.
One of the little pieces of interesting news, I talked to some Pakistani people that have the pods as a regular part of their diet.
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional way of eating that is to section the pod, about string bean length,
Uh-huh.
and then they boil the seeds in the pod, the seed being the primary food, and then they lick the inside of the pod when they take the seed out of it.
Okay. Don't let them, if you let them get too high, then it's like, I don't want to climb up there and pick them, or get a ladder out. So you can cut them off. You can cut them pretty low, and they'll just keep going. They'll come back strong. So, I don't even cut mine. I just take a branch and break it, because it's like soft wood. You gotta figure if it grows that fast, the wood isn't like really hard. And they snap off pretty easy, and you just break them up and put them in a compost or whatever.
Okinawa spinach, we have a number of low-growing, ground-cover type plants coming up here that you can harvest in the summertime. And the interesting thing is, they grow well in part shade, so under fruit trees is a great place to plant them. This is from tropical Asia. The interesting thing about it is the coloration. Underneath the leaf is a deep purple, and the top of the leaf is a dark green. So it's highly ornamental as well. A part shade, it really does best in part shade because it tends to dry up unless it's getting a lot of water in full sun. It does not like cold at all. It almost goes away in the wintertime, but it will persist. Did you keep it alive through the winter, David?
Yes, it did very well. It's in full sun. I've had other people say what you say, that it doesn't do well in full sun. This is one of the most productive plants in my garden. I harvest that once or twice a month.
Good.
And I've got to kind of keep it contained because it gets aggressive, but it's beautiful. I show it off for everybody.
How about the winter? How about the winter cold?
Well, again, everything when you put it up there probably will need some form of protection if we start to go back to cold winters again. And you might want to discuss that at the end because there are different ways to protect plants. Don't just throw sheets over them.
Okay.
How is it propagated?
Cuttings, take cut it like this, strip the lower leaves off, stick it in a pot. You'll have roots on it, ready to plant in 3 weeks.
The other way to do it is to get a mature plant and bury half of it, and wherever it's buried, they'll root into that, and then just split them apart.
Okay, sounds good, yeah. Easy plant to work with.
Okay, Moluccan spinach, the plant with many names. We're trying to figure out what to call it. A lot of places, Bill says, call it longevity spinach. I was introduced to it as Dawn Dewa, or as Rita likes to call it, Dewey Dawn. And then I looked online and I found Moluccan spinach, so whatever you want to call it. We've got it labeled back there as longevity spinach, so if you want to get some. It's tropical from Asia, a vine. It spreads, it branches, and it gets maybe a foot high, and they just kind of climb over each other every which way. And it can, most any kind of soil, although I would amend the soil a little bit for around here. Nutrition, I'm not sure. Oh, there are some medicinal properties to it. And it's just the leaves. They don't really get, they will get flowers occasionally, little tiny ones, but for propagating it, just like the Okinawa spinach. In fact, it's related. So just take a cutting, take off the lower leaves, put it in soil. Use it in salads, smoothies, raw or cooked. The surface of the leaf is slightly hairy or fuzzy, just a tiny bit. If you don't mind that, it's fine. If you cook it, you won't notice it at all. So it has a very mild taste and goes with about anything.
Malabar spinach. This is a very pretty vine, but you really have to trellis it because otherwise it just become a tangled mess on the ground. Dark green leaves and a nice dark red stem. It reseeds very, very freely. So it likes a rich, moist soil. It's got some high vitamin A and vitamin C. The leaves and the tips to use, and again, this is another mucilaginous or viscous vegetable. So if you like that sort of thing, then this might be a very, very good summer plant for you.
Ceylon spinach. Carol Barron first introduced this to me, and she called it leaf a day. She said she heard from somebody that gave her some that a doctor said, if you just eat one leaf a day, you'll be healthy. So I went online and searched around, finally found this name, Ceylon spinach. It's also called jewels of Opar because of the little purple flowers. So another one with lots of names. But we have it labeled here as Ceylon spinach. And it's from the Caribbean and Central America. It's perennial. It seeds freely. I mean, the little tiny seed, like when the flower's done, the little seed pod sometimes will just pop open and it throws these little tiny black seeds all around. So they can come up everywhere. So once you've got it, you don't have to worry about, you've got plenty of it. But I love it. It's tasty, it's, kind of mild, juicy. It's not really mucilaginous. You can do it from cuttings. Like I say, once you've got it, you've got it. Plant it in the sun or part shade, soil, moist or well drained. It's got good protein and A and C and iron and calcium. You use the leaves and the stems in salads or cook them. If you're using the thick part of the stem, you got to cook it, but it'll make it pretty tender. And the little flowers, you can eat those too, and the stems, flower stems. Does have a little oxalic acid, and it's a good ornamental. It's pretty. Yeah.
I had some very good coaching with this.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed a few things that much in the way of flowers. I tend to cut back the jewel parts, which really look gold, it's like little white and red beads on the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever it's given a shady area, you get these large, luscious, juicy leaves. They're ideal. And
Yeah.
so when I had other plants that were shading this, but not so much that they totally competed with it, I got much better production from it. And it tended to snake under the fine shady areas. So it's nice when you mix it in, and it's spread nicely too. I was afraid I was going to lose the bulbs. I've got a nice green patch now.
Yeah, it doesn't get real tall, maybe 1.5 feet or so, or 2 feet maybe, and then it bends and it starts branching out.
But it's fun to grow.
Yeah, yeah, and I have noticed the same. If it's not all day sun, just shorter amount of sun, the leaves can get bigger.
I
Yeah,
think it's right because of the ones that are having the sun, the leaves are smaller.
yeah.
And then the little bugs are tiny, very small. But when I just planted under the avocado tree, I mean, they are just amazing. I mean, it's a lot bigger. So today I planted 47 starters of those in 2 different corners.
Wow.
I know they're going to do well because they are net shade.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're going to do okay.
Nature is abundant.
Sweet potato, everybody knows this one. Very, very easy to grow. You can take cuttings from existing sweet potato vines and just put them in a bucket with water and let them root and then plant them out. That's one way to propagate them, where you can propagate them from sweet potatoes. Very, very easy to work with. They grow rather easily. They don't like rich soil because they can grow, unless you're growing them to eat the leaves specifically, grow them in kind of a sandy soil. It's not too rich. You get more tubers from it.
Bill?
Yes.
Can I share something? Because of our sprawling vine and they do take over, I was reading that you can take wire mesh, and make yourself round barrel shapes. Throw them full of just mulch and sand, throw your tubers in. When they start coming up, throw another layer in, and just keep, as the vines come up, just keep throwing more on. And at the end of the season, it'll eventually cascade out the top of the barrels, and then you can just unhook the barrel, and all your potatoes will fall out. So if you have a limited area and want to grow sweet potatoes, that's a really good way to do it.
It sounds like a potato growing method has been adapted to sweet potato. How big a circle do you?
Well, it depends on how much space you have. I mean, you get your wire and just make I use a little rebar, just to kind of stabilize it. And some people put bamboo around the edge, just to, cover it up.
Right.
And then it looks really pretty because you get the vine coming out the top with the flowers, and
Sure.
you can trim the vine back and just eat it while you're waiting for the potatoes to form.
Thank you.
On the sweet potatoes, I've read that you should always peel them because they accumulate toxic things that can be in the soil into the skin. And sweet potatoes are used actually to remediate some toxic soil. Yeah. So,
It'd be nice to confirm that from several sources, I've never heard that. In fact, I've seen lots of recommendations to eat the skin.
yeah, if it is in clean soil.
Yeah. Well, I think hopefully our gardens are.
I have several comments. I don't want to prolong this too long, but
It's all right.
we had like a rash of sweet potato growing, so we tried several varieties. One of the things is a black spot that seems to get into some of them. It's very bitter and inedible. They will rot even if you take care of them carefully, and they have to be cured.
Right.
You basically try not to knock much dirt off them and wash them off, which is the usual tendency when you harvest a vegetable. Let them air dry for several days to up to 2 weeks. Then you can wash them, and then let the skin and the flavor develop over a longer period of time. She mentioned growing from the potatoes. We actually grow them from slips, which are essentially sprouts that come out from the potato. And that's, you get a lot more plants per thing. And some of those, when you try growing them that way, it's like the avocado technique, the potato will just rot and smell. It won't give you any slips. So you need to have several starters to make sure you get adequate slips. I really love the flavor of the yellow sweet potato or yam, but presumably the white sweet potato, and I'm talking about the meat now, gives you a more edible leaf. And I've raised both, and the people that I've shared potatoes with like both. It's just my preferences for the ones.
There's some varieties, particularly grown in Asia, that are grown just for the leaf.
Yes. And finally, if you just let them spread over the ground, they make a great ground cover. And I had some winter through and even ate some of them, but now they're getting diseased, and I don't know whether it's for lack of nutrients or what in the soil, so I gotta check into that. But if you want large potatoes, and I mean, we've had some really big ones, you need to get the vine, train the vine up. It doesn't grab onto stuff, so you need to get some height on it. So if it grows up over a fence or hangs down from an elevated garden, you not only get the beautiful appearance of the flowers, but you tend to get a bigger root as a result.
Anybody else growing sweet potatoes here? Good.
Yes.
Any comments?
From our experience at the Faith House, it's also pretty much like weed. So it's sometimes hard to get rid of it once you don't want it anymore.
Yeah, where you grow sweet potatoes, you're gonna have them coming up for a long time, even though you may not want them there again, you know? So
Yeah, but you've got those tender leaves to eat, which is
yeah. Just be aware, and then you can make decisions with some knowledge, because they don't go away very easily once you have them. Well, I don't have a lot of experience with cassava. We have some planted at the Faith House. So some of you from Latin America here may have had more experience than we have. I'll talk briefly about it. It's in the Caribbean and Central America, it's used the way we use potatoes. It's a starchy root vegetable. It can get fairly tall, 10, 12 feet. You can eat the leaves, but again, there's cyanide in the leaves, so you have to be really careful to cook it. You get tapioca from this plant. You can also get flour from this plant. So it's very easy to grow. There are some varieties with bicolored leaves, like almost white edge to the leaves that are quite pretty. And easy plant to grow. Definitely a tropical shrub. Assyria, do you have some experience growing this or using it?
Well, with Brazil, I mean, we don't let it stay for too long in the soil. I mean, if it's maybe a year old, a little over a year, you harvest, I mean, it's just perfect. I have some in my yard that's been there like forever. It's more decoration, it's like 10, 12 feet high. And of course, it's not edible because the fibers inside will be like very thick strings, nobody can eat that thing. But the way, I mean, we make it in so many different ways. I mean, there are so many recipes. I mean, the tubers themselves, you can do as you do potatoes. You can mash, you can boil in water, you can do mashed, you can fry, I mean, you can cut them in cubes after it's boiled, take the strings out from the meat, cut in half and remove the strings from the middle. So just cut in cubes and you can fry, garlic and onions and put seasonings and fry those cubed lucas in there. It's delicious. To eat over rice or pasta or whatever. But also the flowers, I mean, they make the most amazing, delicious things in Brazil. They do like those cheese puffs, like the Parmesan and all the cheeses, because the tapioca flour is so thin. When the way they mix that, the cheese and the flour and some butter and whatever, and they prepare that thing and they bake. I mean, you start eating, you don't want to stop.
Make it hungry. It's pretty easy to grow this plant, isn't it? That's good. So this is another possibility. Yes.
I was looking at this picture and it looks like the plant's been pruned so it'll bush out more. My plants they just go straight up. They're just all skinny and they'll go, if they have something to go up against, and they'll get up to 16 feet tall.
Yeah.
But the tuber doesn't get fat like that. So I'm thinking that it looks like in production-wise, it's better to keep trimming the stalk, let it bush out. Maybe that makes the tuber larger.
Yeah, I saw a picture of a production field, and they all looked about the same size, so I think they're probably trimming them mechanically.
Spanish needle. My favorite weed. From South America, it's perennial. Yeah, it reseeds itself, really. It gets, after the flower, the petals come off, then it gets these little black things with little hooks, like Velcro, that stick all over you. Those are the needles. Okay, Spanish needles. It's about 3 feet tall, sun or shade. It grows everywhere in Florida. Any soil. Has some nutrition, calcium and iron. You use the young leaves, stems, flowers. My favorite part is the flowers and the buds. But the young leaves also are great. You know, the older leaves and the hard stems, that's 2 fibers. Can use it raw, cooked, make tea out of it. It's got medicinal properties. This was, before I came to Florida, I studied wild edibles, but it was up north, and I came here, I didn't know what I could eat that was growing wild. And this was one of the first things I tried. I didn't know what it was, but I just tried things. And it made me feel good, so I kept eating it, and then I found out what it was, and that the whole plant's edible. So,
Lucky for you.
you be very careful how you do. You just taste it first, chew on it. If it doesn't taste quite right, spit it out. And if it's great after a while, then I take a little swallow, and then, go from there. Now, I was going to say something else about it. I can't. Yeah, Diane.
I find that a lot of people think this plant is pretty rank tasting. And it's pretty strong, it's bitter. But if you get a young plant or just the top leaves, the top couple leaves, and try to find it growing in good soil, then it tastes very good.
Okay.
I don't
Great.
like to eat it raw or cooked, but only thing on leaves. As far as
Yeah.
medicinal, this herbalist in town, Dr. Bob Lynn, says it's one of the best things for respiratory problems. He prescribes it. At the first yard tour at Carol's house, Holly was starting to have an asthma attack. There was some perfume in it. Carol wrapped the young leaves of this and told Holly to chew on it and stop the attack.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah, Dave.
Check into the website Eat the Weeds. He has a nice
yeah.
video on this. And there are parts of this plant in maturity. I think she was talking about the bitterness. If you get the plant grown in good soil, so don't pick it by the roadside unless it's far off the roadside. It makes a very passable pesto. With the right ingredients.
Okay.
I have to make peace with this plant. I learned to make it.
Yes.
When I bought my little house, I go to the house and I say, what a beautiful thing. It goes all around the little daisies. Look like little daisies. I say, oh, what a beautiful plant. I was in love with the plant. But a few weeks after that, when the little black neighbor started, I look at my pants and my little shoes and I say, what? And my cats would come inside the house full of needles.
Yeah.
That's when I learned how to make it.
Yeah, they're pains sometimes, the seeds. This is one of the most important plants to beekeepers because especially in the winter when there's not a lot of other flowering plants, this is flowering and bees are all over it. So, Does-
Flower year round?
Yeah, more sometimes than others, you know, but because the seeds fall off, new plants start, pretty soon you get some more flowers. Yeah, it kind of keeps going all the time. Yeah.
It's another common garden weed. What's a weed?
Plant quality out of place.
Okay, out of place or a plant you haven't found a use for yet, right? Purslane is a very good food, and it comes up all over the gardens, vegetable gardens especially. These seeds, I usually move it around, use it as a border on the edge of the garden.
Try and keep it there.
Yeah, it moves around. But it has some, I think, medium chain fatty acids, so it's worth eating, putting in your salads, or whatever food you want. So easy to grow. It grows in the warmer parts of the year. Anybody else growing it and eating it? Good. Good.
It shows up, on some seeds, and I saw some beautiful nasturtium with red flowers in a pot, and there are, variations, varieties. Most of them are nutritious, but this natural wild one is probably among the most nutritious, but I'd like to get some with the red flowers, just to have some variety. Also, they have a black seed in them, and when you harvest it, you want to watch, presumably the best time to harvest it is just before it's flowering or as flowering, because once you get the black seeds in there, they're hard to spit out or cooking them.
They're so small, I've never seen them.
I've run into some larger ones. We have
really?
They weren't that great, but generally speaking, if you pick it small enough and right enough, it's not a problem.
So the message here is if it's coming up in your garden, don't weed it out and throw it in the compost pile, eat it. Put it where you want it. Great little plants.
Wild amaranth, pigweed, as it's called up north a lot. Comes from North America, I guess. It's an annual. It can get up to 6 feet tall. That's usually the more cultivated varieties. Wild amaranth is usually 1 or 2 feet. Sunny soil, not fussy about the soil. It's got high protein in the seeds, fiber, amino acids. Can eat the leaves and the seeds. The seeds are, it gets that little thing right there coming out the top. And on cultivated, it can get like really big ones. And there's a huge number of varieties, even the wild ones, there's several varieties. I have found some with thorns on them, so I stayed away from them. But the cultivated ones, I think, are better cooked. When I eat them raw, they kind of scratch my throat. But the wild ones, no problem eating them raw. I like them the best.
Do you call that callaloo? In Jamaica they call it callaloo?
Callaloo is a type of amaranth.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just a specific variety. It gets quite tall with kind of more long pointed leaves. Yeah.
I don't know how to cook that. I was going crazy in my garden, and the leaves are kind of, they're thicker, and I just don't know how to, so you can eat it raw?
You can. Yeah. Any suggestions how to cook it?
They had the small farm process last year, they creamed it like spinach.
First time I had it was on a farm in Georgia, and I was visiting, and they had a drought. Like nothing was growing except this stuff. They called it pigweed. They picked a whole bunch, put it in a big pot, and that was our dinner. A good part of our dinner. That was good. Yeah.
I'd like to say also that this is a weed that has become resistant to Roundup. This weed is the bane of Monsanto. Because it is keeps on coming back,
Ah.
it becomes more resistant to it.
Nature wins in the end.
Now, Dow Chemical is coming up with something that is associated to Agent Orange to put on the soil.
All right, here's some other possibilities that may produce some food for you in the summertime. You can actually eat aloe vera. Anybody here eat it? Good, excellent.
How do you eat it?
All right.
You scrape the gel from the inside, the white part, and you eat it.
Eat it like with a spoon, or you put it in a smoothie, or?
Yeah.
If you, okay, lay it down flat, right, on the counter. The round end on the bottom, the flat end on top, and just take a knife and peel just under the top part. Slice that off, and then you can just take a spoon and spoon out the gel, the clear gel.
Yeah, you can also use a potato peel. Just cut it
Okay.
section off and just peel with the potato peel, and then you can cube the.
There you go. Yeah.
Does anybody grow any of these other plants that are listed here? Yes, go ahead.
I grow the cactus, and in fact, I brought some, but I'm gonna need help bringing it in. It's the thornless cactus. I got from John Starnes. It grows so easily, takes abuse, and the young pads, you just scrub them up, and the skin is edible, and you just cut them up in salads, and it tastes like a lemony green pepper. And then the bigger pods, you cut them in strips and peel them and cook them. And it's very, very nutritious, very good for regulating blood
Is that a
sugar.
spineless cactus?
It's spineless.
The prickly pear?
Yeah, it's prickly pear.
Bill,
Yes.
the way I have learned with some Spanish people too, is just you scrape the thorns out of it and you run boiling water over it to take some of the slime. Then you can like chop it off and saute or cook any way you want. Or you can put in your grill, if you take the spines off and wash it, you can also season it and put on your grill. You don't need to run the boiling water if you're gonna grill, because the grill is gonna reduce some of the slimy part of it.
I get a taro patch that's right next to the AC water overflow, the condensation. And I just am letting it grow, and it comes and goes, and then some of the roots balls made their way to the surface, which is kind of interesting. I also have tried growing winged beans, and I've never had success with them. I've seen them, but I just can't seem to get them to perform.
I have some growing, but they're pretty small. I bought a pot at the Saturday morning market from Willis, and I was able to get about 4 or 5 plants out of it, so they're only this tall. I'm
Well, they
hoping.
market that as asparagus bean, you know, I'm drooling for asparagus in the south, and it's
Well,
frustrating.
take a mid-sized moringa pod,
Yeah,
boil it,
okay.
put it on a plate, take a knife, open it up, take a spoon and scoop out the seeds of the gel.
That's
Tastes
tasty.
just like asparagus.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
You know, callaloo also, the stems of the callaloo, green ones before they become woody,
Yeah.
exactly like asparagus. You cut them and saute
thanks for
them,
that.
and you know, they're wonderful.
Great. Great. All right. Yes.
I have canna lilies growing in my yard, so do you eat the blossoms?
They eat the-
And eat the roots.
Oh.
Yeah.
Daylilies.
Yes.
What was that with the daylilies?
I believe it's flowers that are eaten. Anybody do that?
Sparrows,
All right, does anybody else have a plant suggestion that we haven't covered or is not listed here?
Loofah.
Loofah? Okay, how do you use it?
You can eat the immature loofah as a cucumber in summer.
When they're small, right?
Yeah, up to like 4 inches long. Yeah. You'll
Okay.
know if it's fibrous inside or not.
Yes. Diane?
Coyote.
I didn't hear.
Coyote, it's a vine.
Coyote. All right, can you describe it for us, please?
It's a vine, it's very prolific. It gets very odd looking greenish fruit with a hard rind. When you peel it and raw, it tastes just like cucumber, but it has the consistency of a pear. So to me, it tastes better than cucumber. And if you boil it or cook it, it tastes like a very mild squash.
So you can eat it raw or cooked.
Raw or cooked.
Yeah. You can find it in the supermarket too, in the Spanish section.
Winter squash. Seminole pumpkin squash goes all through the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say Seminole pumpkin. It's just, it's 50 feet and more. It's growing huge, big old leaves on it. Pumpkin so far, it's about a month and a half old, it's that big.
Wow. And they're delicious. And they'll last like 5 months stored.
Good.
You
Okay.
can eat these certain cherries.
Sorry,
Grow everywhere.
Yeah.
Grown out.
Yeah.
And you can eat the little berries that come off of the palm trees that grow around here. What are they called?
Cabbage palms?
Yeah, the cabbage palms.
You can eat the fruit.
You can eat the fruit on those. You can eat the fruit on the podocarpus, but you want to make sure that you eat the purple part and not the green part, because the green part's poison.
Okay.
And they're very sweet.
That's it.
Two weeks that you didn't mention, porter weeds and spiderwood. The porter weed, the flowers are edible, you can also use the leaves to make a tea with it.
Right.
The spiderwort, you use the flowers on that as well. The stalk at the bottom is a cross between asparagus and string bean. So you can saute that up. A little string, you don't stir too much, but that's also edible.
The leaves.
The leaves on the spiderwort, the leaves, and the bottom of the stem and stalk of it.
Yeah.
And then the porterweed is the leaves for tea and the flowers for putting in salad or
Okay. Good. Oh, good suggestions. Porterweed and spiderwort are native wildflowers.
Yeah. But the blue, not the pink. The pink, you can't use it the same way.
Really? Okay.
I had a terrible rash from spiderwort's bloom just this past Monday, and my arms started swelling immediately like crazy. I mean, so my husband just put some baking powder, wouldn't go away. Then I put alcohol, wouldn't go away. Baking soda, so we could put and washing the arm with that
What
stuff.
happened? Did you get a rash?
Rash, I was doing the garden, the spiderworts were very big, full of blooms, and once it touched my skin immediately, started.
I've been handling those plants for years and never had a problem.
Yeah, that's the first time I had problems too, I don't know why.
Okay.
This was
David?
horrible.
I haven't heard anybody mention hyacinth bean. It's a very climbing vine, but the leaves, the flowers, and the beans are edible. You have to be careful though, if the beans become dried and mature, they do become poisonous, which surprised me. But the cooked bean is beautiful, but it turns kind of a yucky green when you cook it. And presumably that can be eaten raw. The leaves I really enjoy. I was surprised at the flavor in the leaves. And
That's
then
lab, isn't it? Same plant?
I'm not sure about other names for it, but it's very impressive in the garden because it has these beautiful, what is it, bracts with blooms on them, the stems with lots of flowers. And then tomatillo is something that we've been playing around with lately, and that's kind of a mixed blessing because the birds tend to move it around the garden a lot. It does provide a medium level shade under which other things can grow, but it's pretty aggressive. The nice thing is that even though it's small, you can eat the kind of grape-sized tomatillo. Also, in mentioning the Suriname cherry that is here, the Brazilians make a tomato sauce out of that, and you can cook it, and the seed is sort of like a very bland bean once it's cooked. It's rather hard in the raw.
And we also make liqueur also, the Suriname cherry.
Coming to your garden.
Yes. Yeah. Cantaloupe, you just mentioned cantaloupe, some of the melons.
Pineapple.
Pineapple.
You have to be patient.
We did a cover crop study last year with the University of Florida, and lab was one of the crops that they had as a trial on the sun and some things like that. But we've used it a lot in the fence run. It almost looks like sweet pea flowers.
Can you say something about the tomato plant you have over there on the table? The black, yeah.
I haven't grown it before, so.
Okay, well, I mean, is it
It's
stuff?
a cherry tomato, which is only cherry tomatoes will grow in hot weather.
Okay.
And it's called a black cherry.
Okay. Any instructions on where to plant it?
No?
No?
Just try it.
Just give it a try.
Give it a shot.
Gets through July.
Okay, well, thanks for all those great additional suggestions. A couple of resources here. Gaius Guardians is our local permaculture group. We have a website, gaiusguardians.info. We have a very nice section on there on summer vegetables, which was put up there by Brennan. He did a fabulous job. You see Eat the Weeds there, which David had mentioned as a great source for getting information on edible weeds. It's very, very well done, worth pursuing. And a lot of the vegetables that we talked about, perennials particularly, are from this book, Perennial Vegetables. This is a wonderful reference book by Eric Tonsmeyer. He actually lives up in Massachusetts, but he's done an Echo in North Fort Myers, and he's a big fan of tropical edible plants. About 85% of the plants that he outlines in this book grow in Florida.
Wow.
So it is just terrific. This is a classic as far as I'm concerned. So thank you for coming. Don't forget the plants. Brennan and I will be over here by the plants. We can answer your questions.
Word of caution, please do your research before you eat anything you're not familiar with, okay? Do your research, okay? You don't want anyone getting sick. Also, thank you for coming today. And let's give a hand for Bill and Brendan.